Nottingham Forest began the week with Nuno Espirito Santo in charge, approaching Saturday's encounter at the Emirates. Nottingham Forest, not even halfway through the week, now have appointed Ange Postecoglu after dismissing Nuno from the job. To some, this was a surprise. To others, it's been a gradual build-up within the relationship between him and the owner. But today, we are not here to discuss that rocky road. Instead, we're going to talk about the merch of the Australian gaffer and the East Midlands outfit. Now, Ange Postecoglu needs no introduction to Premier League and European supporters after providing box office headlines and entertainment during his time at the Lily-Whites. He bid his farewell to the London club over the summer, bowing out with a trophy and bowing out with a promise delivered. His promise, however, was delivered with a horrid league campaign, finishing 17th place. Simply inexcusable and impossible to ignore. Before we delve into Nottingham Forest, let's delve into the famous Ange Ball, and what actually is it? Ange Ball consists of careful, possession-oriented, free-flying, fluid attacking football that looks to breathe freedom to the technical assets of the team and overall poses an enjoyable style to watch. There's a narrow and more centrally driven focus as rotations amongst the technical heads of the team look to occur during the middle, where the fullbacks actually invert into midfield. The two centre-backs and deeper defensive midfielder are looking to exploit small gaps between the opposition with intricate looking pass and play. Both the fullbacks, commonly Pedro Porro, Destiny Udogie or Jed Spence, would look to move into midfield in order to formulate that central overload, commonly formulating that 2-3-5 shape, with the wingers providing the width, one from the midfield pivots moving up, but this wasn't rigid. Players aim to move, rotate, to fluidly puzzle the opposition in their attempts to stop them play. The shape could even alter to a 2-1-4-3, which was very attacking, and just abandon the double pivots. The attacking third would also see those aggressive fullbacks run into those underlapping spaces as support for the winger. Off the ball, the Australian looks to utilise a high press and famously recognised high line that runs into some extremes. But let's not pretend it was all sunshine and rainbows. Statistically, Spurs performed as one of the worst teams in the division, because they were one of the worst teams in the division. 22 games lost, one of the worst defences in the division, a struggle all round as we can see, ranking low within short passing stats, ranking fairly average in the goal scoring department despite its stylistic appeal, and ranking even lower when defending their goal. So what actually went wrong for Ange Postecoglu? People blame injuries, but some of those injuries were caused by his style and his demands. Ange Ball became very demanding of his players, but also quite dysfunctional once everybody knew how to play against it. The build-up play was too centrally focused, so once that was nullified, the possession play became far too slow, lacking any imagination or passing patterns in order to progress that ball forwards. Due to that lack of progression, it created not only a lack of momentum, but a lack of nothing, because they weren't going forward. They weren't getting anywhere with the ball. Ange pushes his fullbacks so far forwards, they have to chase back monumental yards in order to recover. Just look at some of the distances between the fullbacks and the opposition wingers. It's a disgrace. This one, you can't even see the fullback in frame, whilst also allowing Mo Salah, the best performing player in the country at the time, all of this space to run forwards. The space was just not protected whatsoever. Too many players were being pushed forwards, and Ange was heavily reliant on his centre-backs to dominate and quickly cover the open space for him. But that, of course, isn't sustainable. Injuries caught up with those centre-backs and that squad. The striker too had a fairly demanding role, often being Solanke, being asked to press at big distances, which is bad news for Chris Wood. Spurs became far too easy to play against, spending more time chasing back half the pitch than actually moving forward and doing some good. Now, Ange to me is a very likeable personality, one that you want to get behind. He's incredibly enthusiastic and encouraging to any group of players. But for me, I think this is a very strange fit. Marinakis and the higher-ups of Nottingham Forest see this as the next step to solidifying the Reds as a dominating force in the country, the Steve Cooper to the Nuno type of upgrade, suggesting a demand for results, a higher level for results. But this result, and the result of Ange Postecoglu coming in, is going to demand time, recruitment, resources and a lot of trust. Recruitment in the Forest squad for the past few years has been moulded around Nuno Espirito Santo's style of play. That style of play is to be defensively tricky, resilient, compact, whilst maximising counter-attacks, direct plays and the speed of the flanks. Nuno's side would look to stubbornly sit in a 4-4-2 shape rather than press. This is a drastic difference compared to Ange Postecoglu, the sort of difference that we need a full pre-season to undergo and to address, not midway through the international break and not 3 games into the Premier League season. It's horrible timing. Forest have some immensely technical assets, but this doesn't mean the transition will be very smooth. Recently I detailed Forest's difficulty in breaking down lower, tighter defensive blocks, struggling with more of the ball and more possession. Ange, of course, will look to improve upon this, but has Marinakis recognised that the Reds and their biggest strength was how good they were defensively, sitting off and sitting deep. The appointment of Ange Postecoglu could tarnish this, could jeopardise this. It could ruin this, and he's the type of manager to enforce his style and demands onto a squad regardless of some of their capabilities. But let's analyse those capabilities. Let's have a look at Ange comparing Nottingham Forest, who fits, who doesn't, and more. Now this to me is Ange Postecoglu-like starting 11 with Nottingham Forest's squad. Now I know there's gaps here, there's certain areas that you need to address. This isn't my ideal 11 under Ange Postecoglu for Nottingham Forest, but I think it's what Ange Postecoglu in the long term will like. There's gaps, we're going to talk of them later. But what does Ange Postecoglu actually like within this team, and how have I come up with this? Well, he likes 1v1 direct, fast, tricky wingers that cut inside. You've got Callum Hudson-Odoi for that, and you've got recent signing from Strasbourg, Bakwa. What else does he like? He likes a technical core. Anderson, Douglas Luiz and Morgan Gibbs-White massively represent this, with James McAtee, Hutchinson and Odoi also on the bench as well. He likes a number 10 that drifts in deep, similar to James Maddison at Tottenham Hotspur, influencing the play in build-up, and that's exactly what Morgan Gibbs-White can do. He likes a fast number 9, somebody to close down his man very quickly, somebody with raw speed who can maybe drift out wide and really influence the play, influence the defence. Cali Mwendo supports this. These players, for me, massively thrive. And adding to that technical core within the midfield, you have Zinchenko, who's very used to the role of coming into midfield from his days with Mikel Arteta. But players that I think that are going to struggle under Ange Postecoglu and struggle to adjust to this very demanding style of play, of course, is Milenkovic. Milenkovic is better when he doesn't have to chase back, when he defends his box from deep. That maximises the best out of his strengths. Ange Postecoglu and his high line isn't going to utilise that. I think somebody else who could struggle, Ryan Yates. He's not the most technical player in the world. He's more of a workhorse that I do really like, but I can't see him personally, myself, influencing the play from build-up. He'll probably just get cut minutes and that's it. Ollie Anya is another one for me. I think a lot of people really fancy them as this all-round brilliant fullback, but for me, for a while, he's not been very sharp upon fitness. For me, when he's running, he doesn't show that raw speed anymore. He's regressed quite a bit, and I think the idea of him is much better than the actual player himself. Chris Wood is another one. I like Chris Wood. He's a very good player. He's a very traditional number 9, but with Ange Postecoglu, what he wants from his number 9, how much they want him to run in behind, to press down. I don't think it suits Chris Wood's style of play. I think Chris Wood will be used as a player off the bench within the last 15 to 20 minutes when they're chasing a game, when they're dominating a game, when the team is pinned in, they're looking for crosses and they're simply just looking for a direct way to score. Now if we have a look at Ange Postecoglu and his deep build-up shape, this is how I think it could look like at Nottingham Forest. You have the two centre-backs splitting apart, you have the two full-backs inverting beyond Anderson and Douglas Luiz. Zinchenko, immensely technical, very comfortable receiving on the inside of the pitch. Nico Williams, I think, could do a better job than Ollie Anya just here. You have Morgan Gibbs-White dropping in deep, influencing the build-up play, dragging players away and allowing them to progress the ball forwards quite naturally. I think Anderson and Douglas Luiz could be very good here. And overall, when you have a look at the team, it's immensely technical. Again, there are gaps that I'm going to look at later, but it's immensely technical and nice to look at within this phase. Within these players in the middle, there's a lot of central focus, and I think these players really support Ange Postecoglu's central focus. Anderson, absolutely immense in tight spaces. His quick feet is absolutely fantastic, a really good all-round asset. Douglas Luiz is so capable of picking a pass forward, whether that's short, whether that's long. Morgan Gibbs-White's capable of dropping in. It's overall very pretty on the eye. But when you have a look at the centre-backs, they've got to be so careful on the ball because there's not exactly a pass out wide for them. That is a huge pass to the flanks from Murillo and Milenkovic, and they're not used to passing accurate. They're not used to passing short that much. So they've got to get it spot on or they're going to lose the ball. These players are capable of losing the balls. Mistakes are going to happen. Ange Postecoglu and his Tottenham team did make mistakes playing out from the back. And that was much more technical players used to a more possession dominant style of play. With Ange Postecoglu, with these players are not used to that. So Murillo, despite being a fantastic player and having that raw speed to get back, I think he could struggle here because he's a little bit erratic sometimes within his passing. That can creep into his game. Milenkovic, really good player, really good defender, but this could also creep into his game. Matt Sells, I'm not too worried about, but he's more used to playing direct balls, which Ange Postecoglu isn't against, but we could see Sells slightly suffer in this department as well. We can see many different shapes within this, as I really can see these midfield players with Zinchenko rotating quite fluidly. You could see Anderson and Zinchenko rotate and Zinchenko take up this role instead. You could see Morgan Gibbs-White rotating, Zinchenko pushing up, or Anderson and Zinchenko rotating. There's a lot of fluidity here, and I think this could be really promising for Nottingham Forest within this department. And yes, there are gaps, again, they could be exposed, but we'll talk about them later. Other players who can thrive within these spaces consist of McAtee, Hutchinson and Odoi. McAtee, for me, is a very like-for-like replacement, very like-for-like backup for Morgan Gibbs-White. Hutchinson, quite similar, and Odoi, potentially from the left or from the attacking midfield. There's a lot to work with here. Sangare can also do this. Dominguez, Ryan Yates, I don't really see him in this department. He's a much more tidy, simple player, but he could get minutes off the bench. That's the best I see for him. Overall, things do look very promising within this department. My only concern is the fact that Nottingham Forest are transitioning from a much more wider focus in transition, attacking large spaces, large amounts of space to easily run into, and now they're going to be focusing on very cramped out, very narrow, very compact central spaces. That is a huge difference and one that is going to take time to adjust to. But if you have a look at them within the middle third, it's going to be a similar shape again, but as you can see, this technical core is absolutely huge again. The build-up play is very narrow, and when the ball is going to shift out wide, you're going to see Zinchenko making these underlapping runs, or Nico Williams, whoever plays there, making those underlapping runs. But as you can see, the space is very cramped out, but it's very narrow, and it does isolate the wingers 1v1, which supports Bakwa and Hudson-Odoi in their ability to beat their fullbacks 1v1 instead of being doubled up on, because players will need to be shifting across and dealing with this immensely technical core, this very narrow core Once again, the centre-back passing has to be absolutely precise within this phase. You can see all the players rotating. Once again, I think Anderson is really going to excel here with Douglas Luiz, the players rotating, moving about. Players can quite fluidly move wherever they want, and Cali Mwendo is going to be after dropping deep within the build-up play to get onto the ball and to create space for others with runners in behind. You can see Nico Williams dropping into these spaces as Cali Mwendo drops in. There's the potential for a lot of fluidity here, but there's also the potential for a lot of exposure here as well. If we have a look at the attacking phase, then as you can see, there is a clear breakdown into how to attack an Ange Postecoglu team. Now that we've added an opposition within the framework, you can see exactly where the opposition needs to attack. As soon as a turnover happens when Hudson-Odoi tries this underlapping run, they clear it. Bang. Where are they going straight away? They're going to go to the flanks. Murillo's going to have to shift across. There's going to be Douglas Luiz 3 versus 3. They're going to outnumber them, or 3 versus 4 depending on the opposition's shape. If you try this on the other flank as well, then Milenkovic, his leg is going to be finished. His hamstrings are going to go within 5 minutes. It's the same with Oli Anya as well. He's going to be quite injury prone within this system. I think there's a lot to be worried about from a Nottingham Forest perspective, because there's no dual dominant defensive midfielder to protect these two defenders as well. This is my concern about a Luiz and Anderson pivot. Sangare could come into this because overall he's a little bit more defensively minded, more than Douglas Luiz, but again, I don't think he quite has the athleticism to match this. Dominguez would probably be your best bet. He's got a little bit more running about him, but again, I don't think this is definitely going to work within this department. Douglas Luiz, whenever he played for Aston Villa in a single pivot, was massively exposed and isolated within this department. They needed Kamara, they needed Onana to play with him, and this, to me, is quite concerning. The flanks will be where Nottingham Forest get exposed. Essentially, Nottingham Forest are going to get Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest in the sense that Nuno Espirito Santo look to expose teams. The shape simply requires more balance for this team than 3 defending and then 7 attacking. There is so much distance for the likes of Zinchenko, for the likes of Williams to recover. The distance between the winger and their fullback. It's going to be too easy to play against Nottingham Forest at times. Any turnover, the DM gets isolated, the centre-backs get exploited. Now, of course, the high line with Murillo, it's not too big of a problem. He is fast, he's got good recovery pace, but for Milenkovic, it's going to be a lot of work. And a lot of work that's going to pour over to Murillo, doing a lot of running. And I can really see some injuries happening within this department. For all of these players here, chasing back, trying to help their team, it's not something that Nottingham Forest are used to. And when you have a look at this phase just here, it is still very narrow. So if they lose the ball, they're going to be finished in transition. It's going to be very difficult for these players to cover. Douglas Luiz isn't the fastest or dominant when running back and competing within duels. You're going to need somebody like Sangare, or you're going to need somebody like Dominguez to help here, because although they're not the most technical, they do protect this back line and this team in transition much more than a Douglas Luiz and Anderson pivots. It's immensely concerning from a Nottingham Forest standpoint. Is it really worth it jeopardising your defensive solidity, one of your finest strengths, one of the biggest strengths you can have as a mid-table team within the Premier League, as a team pushing that big 6, just for a little bit more attacking success? Attacking success that isn't definitely promised either. This could be difficult to adjust to with the much more central focus, narrow focus, which is a complete polar opposite to what you once had. Is it worth it? Would it have been better to appoint an Oliver Glasner or Andoni Iraola type manager, somebody with a little bit more defensive solidity to them, even though Iraola isn't famous for that? I just think this is a bit of a wrong fit. After time, it could be genuinely really good, really cool to watch, but I think it's going to take more recruitment, more money after they've just spent so much money. adjusting a squad to Nuno Espirito Santo. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, smash a like and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of the appointment? You may disagree with me and think Ange Postecoglu will be fantastic at Nottingham Forest, or do you agree with me and think it could be a disaster? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.